So as we begin, we want to state what is our purpose of today. And our purpose really is to understand what do we mean by high quality curriculum. It is why are we looking at this? What's behind the adoption? What were we looking for, the criteria for curriculum? We'll share a little bit about what does it look like, the EL education and the Eureka Math that is being proposed. What does that mean as a teacher? What would that instruction look like? What do the resources look like? How is the curriculum put together? We'll discuss the implementation plan as well as some readiness that will help us understand how to best support our schools and our teachers. So we know what curriculum is, can be started at the umbrella. Our State Department has created and has worked with teachers across the state to develop our Virginia Standards of Learning, and that is our curriculum framework. So what is a curriculum then? It begins simply with our scope and sequence, taking those standards from the state and really being able to address those and what is the pace and timing and the sequencing of those standards. And then grouping them together in units of instruction. What makes sense? How can there be essential questions where we take these standards and group them together so our students have a better understanding of the learning? And then we get into daily lessons. So curriculum typically has daily lessons in them, but daily lessons we don't mean by scripted lessons. And we want to make sure that's clear in our work, that this really is a range of tools and things to support learning. I see this, so I love to cook. So I take this to a personal level, and I there are some things I cook and I need to really follow that recipe. It might be the first time I've made a recipe. And so I'm following that recipe pretty closely because it's the first time I've cooked it. But then as I have grown in my ability to cook, I know that I can substitute this for this, and the quality of my meal will still be the same. And so we see daily lessons as really a roadmap or a recipe that can be guided depending on your expertise. Maybe it's a new standard that's new for you to teach. And so this helps support that, but again, a range of tools, etc. Dr. Ebb?
Thank you, Dr. Neighbors. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to quickly chime in. This is an area that I feel especially passionate about, and you'll hear me say this a bunch. This won't be the first time you hear me say this, but I want to be on record. The daily lessons and the resources you're going to see are not in any way designed to be scripted. They're not designed to be delivered in a scripted manner. And so I just to me, that is worse than using no curriculum at all, or pretty close to that, So if you just want to make sure folks know, like, not only is it not desirable, it's unacceptable to treat this or use this curricula in a scripted fashion.
Thank you. I think that's really just important to note, as that, of course, has come up as a concern, and we want to make sure that that's never the intention of curricula. In addition, the assessments, that the curriculum would also include assessments. So we are able to track the progress of our students and understand what adjustments we need to make to have them reach the mastery. And then, of course, high quality instructional resources. We need those resources in order to deliver the high quality instruction that we want for our students. There is research, there's a ton of research we know that a teacher has the greatest impact on students. But there's recent research that really shows that a high quality curriculum paired with that high quality teacher can exceed the expectations we have with our students. And so that research shows that high quality curriculum is important as well. We talk a little bit about why are we adopting curriculum? And first and foremost, starting with our students. So our student data shows that our students need more and are not meeting the proficiency expectations. So how do we move forward with that? And then simply, we have new standards. We have new standards in math, we have new standards in ELA, but yet our curriculum is based on the old standards. The old adoptions for elementary were in 14 and 15, and in middle school, years before that. We know that a high quality curriculum can really support equity and supports collaboration, as well as part of our dreams for RPS and our strategic plan. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the criteria that the Curriculum Review Committee came together last March 2019 to determine what are the things we're specifically looking for in a math and an ELA curriculum. So Cassandra Bell will kick us off with that.
Thank you, Dr. Neighbors. When the committee came together and they discussed what components were needed for a quality curriculum, they really identified a few things that we really wanted to have in any curriculum that we adopted. First, we wanted to ensure that we had a real progression from concrete to representational to abstract. So our students had an opportunity to really touch and feel manipulatives before they are ever introduced to algorithms. And then they moved into pictorial representations, and then finally into that abstract with the algorithm. So we really wanted to make sure that we found a curriculum that progressed through the CRA model. We also wanted a curriculum that infused mathematical vocabulary, so we had our students have an opportunity to really engage in math dialogue. We also wanted to make sure that we incorporated a curriculum that had computational skills. We wanted our students to really be able to collaborate with one another and to see themselves in the math. We also wanted to ensure that we prepared our students to adequately progress to Algebra 1 by the 8th grade. We know that Algebra 1 really is truly a gatekeeper course, and we wanted to make sure that in any curriculum that we adopted, we ensured that we started our students early on with skills that would prepare them for Algebra 1.
I want to highlight 3 bullets that are here because there was quite an ambitious list of criteria, and what our committee said was really important. The first bullet I'd like to highlight here is the idea of complex text. They wanted texts that students were going to have access to that were written on or above grade level to help them build comprehension, vocabulary, as well as that conceptual knowledge. Also, they wanted to have balance between the fiction and the nonfiction text, which meant there was a strong connection to building science, social studies, and literature background for students to be able to understand what it was that they were reading, as well as being able to understand the context in which they were reading. And finally, another very important priority for this committee was the idea of having a systematic approach to teaching students to read. And that is something that we have talked about constantly this year in terms of the importance of teaching students how to read, especially in those lower grades, kindergarten, first and second, before we're actually expecting students to do access that complex text on their own. First, they have to crack the code of reading, and then we can continue to go on. So that was something that was very important to this committee. And now I'll go ahead and segue in to the introductions that we are fortunate to have our partners with us today to speak to us about our upcoming proposed curriculum. And the first one that will speak to us today will be our partners from EL Education. So I'll let those ladies go ahead and begin while I bring up the presentation.
Great, thank you so much. We are really happy to have Open Up Resources and EL Education be able to speak with you today. My name is Ginger Camrath. I am the K-12 Customer Success Manager at Open Up Resources. Also joining me today is Carrie Horn-Lehman. Carrie is the Associate Director of Curriculum Partnerships at EL Education, and Jenya DeVoe. Jenya is the Director of ELA at Open Up Resources. Next slide, thank you. So here you'll see how EL Education and Open Up Resources really work together to start supporting our districts. In addition to providing excellent full course curricula for free in a digital format, we also provide the implementation support services that allow teachers and districts to implement the curriculum in the strongest way possible. And this includes everything from professional learning to printed materials to trade books and even a digital platform. And we really work to partner with districts to find the best strategy that works for you. We know how important it is for you to spend your time and your budget wisely. So we do everything to support districts before, during, and after their implementation in order to help you think through everything that you need to be as successful as possible. In our honeycomb web here, you'll see our professional learning team, And as the authors of this curriculum, they are thoughtfully poised to support in all of the phases and all of the players that you have on your implementation team. Next slide, please. All right, we'll jump into the curriculum now for a brief overview. One more slide, please. Thank you. EL's focus is on ensuring that all students have access to high quality curriculum, something that aligns to the standards, that prepares them for successes in and out of the classroom, and something that teaches them to be better people and better citizens of the world. This curriculum has social justice and equity at its heart, and the topics of each of the modules were chosen to help students see themselves in the content, but also to provide opportunities to learn more about the perspective of others. Every text in this curriculum is authentic, and your students will read them from start to finish. So no snippets, no anthologies. They are reading these full authentic texts, and they're being active learners. So on a daily basis, they are being given that opportunity to speak, to listen, to have their ideas and their voices heard, but also to learn from their peers. So from this, students are learning to celebrate one another. They're learning to respect the differences and the different opinions that might not fall in line with their own. Additionally, EL education is a content-based literacy curriculum where students are diving deep into science and social studies topics in a student-centered approach. Now, they're doing this because of all of the research that tells us that content-based literacy promotes achievement, and it truly makes the learning stickier for students. Throughout the entire curriculum, teachers are providing students with the right scaffolds and the right supports, gradually released as needed, to engage every student in their classroom with challenging and meaningful work and working with those same complex text. Next slide, please. EL education is fiercely committed to supporting the development of the entire student. And so they've incorporated this expanded view of achievement into the curriculum. And this is really something that sets it apart from so many others. As educators ourselves, we of course care deeply about standards and students' ability to meet them. That's why this curriculum explicitly teaches and formally assesses all college and career-ready standards. As adults, though, we know that mastery of skill and mastery of knowledge isn't the only measure of success. So with this curriculum, the premium is also placed on building strong habits of character, on focusing on the output of high-quality work. So we believe our students are more than just test scores, and we believe that we have an obligation to help them develop fully as people. With this curriculum, your students will start to take ownership of their learning as they're developing that rich content knowledge and meeting the standards. So they are learning to persevere and effectively communicate with folks that are different, have different perspectives in their own. Next slide, please.
One of the hallmarks of the EL education curriculum is something we call our read, think, talk, write cycle. So as teachers, anytime you're analyzing the lesson plans that we have as part of the curriculum, or even just bringing these to life for kids in your classrooms, you will notice that every day your kids have the opportunity to do these 4 things, all centered around the central text of the module. So this is a text that is really engaging for them. It's a complex text. What we know about reading and writing is it's most effective when it's an integrated approach. So as a teacher myself, I used in the past a reader's workshop and then a writer's workshop, and my reading and writing was absolutely separate, and we instead merged the 2. So every day, every lesson, kids have the opportunity to read about something, think about something with the questions the lesson plan tells you to ask them. They're going to talk to each other about it, and then they're going to do some writing about it as well. Most of this is going to happen as part of your module lesson. So I just said the word module a moment ago. That's just the word we use to describe the core content-based component of the curriculum. At every grade, kindergarten right up through 8th grade, there's a module lesson that happens every single day. In grades K through 5, this module lesson is 60 minutes daily. Every single reading, writing, speaking, and listening standard is taught and assessed as part of those module lessons. In middle school, this is 45 minutes daily. And again, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Now, in grades K through 2, we know that they need to develop their language ability, and they also need to learn how to read. So there's a second hour of instruction every day in grades kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd. That's called the Reading Foundations Skills Block. It's explicit and systematic phonics instruction. Kids are going to crack the alphabetic code, and they're going to do this in a combination of whole group instruction that you lead for them for about 15 minutes of the time, and then differentiated small group rotations that you're going to lead them through for about 45 minutes every day. In grades 3 through 5, in addition to that module lesson, there's 1 other hour each day that gives kids extra practice in writing, independent reading, spelling, grammar, mechanics. This is called the additional language and literacy block, or all block. Across all grades, the organizing structure is a module structure, 8 to 9 weeks for each of these modules. These align with the quarters of the school year. The next slide, Ebony, if you can click ahead for me, will show how this will unfold across the school year. And I also want to note that each module is further broken down into 3 units. So you'll spend the first couple weeks of a module getting kids hooked into the topic, building their background knowledge, getting them used to the vocabulary of the topic. The second unit, more work with that same topic, deeper research, more choice reading, more talking to one another, routine daily writing. And then the final unit of that module, same topic, but now the kids have a whole bunch to write about since they've done all that reading and thinking and talking all throughout. And this is where that extended writing piece comes that's aligned with the writing types required by the standards. This goes through that whole writing process we all are so familiar with as teachers.
Great. So we're looking at just a sampling of the teacher materials. And one thing I'd like you to keep in mind as we take a quick view of these, but then also you can access the curriculum for free on our website, is that this is a curriculum written by teachers for teachers. So unlike a lot of curricula that is out there right now, you're going to find primarily teaching-facing materials rather than student-facing materials in this curriculum. So the teaching guides, you'll find extensive teaching notes. You'll find guidance for using new instructional techniques and for protocols, a lot of suggestions for supporting ELLs, step-by-step training and practices such as leading students and careful reading of complex text or citing evidence in writing. You will also find daily learning targets, as you see on this page, and they're written in I can language. So they are very student-friendly, and this allows your students to be proactive about understanding what it is they need to do or what they need to know. The lessons themselves, if you could show the next slide, please, are not scripts. And it makes my teaching heart really happy to hear that's something that you are looking for as you are looking to adopt a new curriculum. These lessons provide clear guidance and lesson flow through activities, but it does not tell the teacher what they need to say and when they need to say it. Every lesson has opportunities to differentiate. Suggestions for teachers. There are different levels of support that are referenced so teachers can meet students where they are on all levels. And this is really why we say the curriculum has its own professional development embedded within the lessons themselves, because it really does allow for teachers, new and veteran, to make this curriculum their own. The next slide, please. EL is known for, and I love this phrase, that the curriculum should be taught with integrity and not fidelity. So you will find suggestions on how to do things and what the lesson flow should be, but EL knows that the teachers are the best equipped and the best experts in their students in their classrooms. The next slide then, please.
Perfect, thank you. Oftentimes, whenever we first start to talk with teachers about the curriculum, they say, well, how do we know this is gonna work? How's this different than anything that we all have done in the past? What research do you have to back this up? And so we have 2 main studies. One is our Mathematica policy research study, which was called our Teacher Potential Project. What we basically did as part of this study was we partnered with 18 different districts across the country. We gave novice teachers in their first 3 years of teaching this curriculum. We just put it in their hands, and we gave them professional professional learning support from us at EL Education. And then the research company came into their classrooms and did observations, as well as looked at their student assessment data at high stakes end of grade assessments. What they found was within 1 year of implementation, there was a measurable difference in the teacher performance in the classroom. So teachers were using practices like close reading. Students were doing things like citing evidence in their answers, using the text from the lessons, much more than students in the control group where they were not using this curriculum. And in 2 years, there was measurable achievement, measurable growth in the student achievement data equivalent to about a month and a half of extra learning. The other study, I know I've got 10 seconds left, is a WestEd study, which looked into the K-2 curriculum in particular, a school district in Tennessee where they implemented the modules and the skills, those 2 hours daily, and those students outperformed other students across the state, as you can see demonstrated on the slide here. Thank you.
Great job, ladies. And now I'll turn it
Hey,
over
Ebony.
to Sandra.
Sorry,
yes.
just real quick. You can decide if you want to punt this later about, there's just a bunch of questions in the chat about alignment to SOLs on the EL side. Do you want to catch that later or address it now before we move to math?
Well, we can address it because we have worked with our partners and we've had lots of discussions and will continue to be in discussions around ensuring that there is an alignment between EL, the learning targets in EL education and the Virginia SOLs. One thing with reading, and it is a little bit different in reading than it is in math, in that we do have a K-12 curriculum or a course, a K-12 course here in Virginia. And just like the Common Core standards, for Virginia standards, those skills spiral year to year, every year for our students. And so we do want to make sure that we are aligning, but you will see that there is much more alignment with this curriculum than you may suppose with the language of, with the way that the standards are written, but the skills are absolutely aligned.
And if you want a high level look at that, in general, we do have on our website at the curriculum adoption site on everyschools.net, there is a overview of the correlation between the curriculum and our standards. But that is just the high level. We will be continuing to do more work through this partnership because that is our job, to support our teachers to make sure that is met.
I would just also share real quick that when you look at the Virginia, the upgraded Virginia SOL standards for ELA, and I think Garen J. Richardson talked a little bit about this at our last board meeting, we see the state of Virginia wants the same outcomes for students in terms of reading and writing as the National College and Career Ready standards do. So when we look at the outcomes that this curricula is preparing students for, there's very close alignment. And I think you'll see, if you've studied the newer to the ELA standards in Virginia, you'll see that. And again, we have that crosswalk work for you as well, but just want to assure folks that I see the learning outcomes to be highly aligned to the intent of the Virginia SOLs for ELA.
Okay, so now I will turn it over to Cassandra and Great Minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony. We're going to now transition to mathematics, and we're going to hear from our partners at Great Minds, and they're going to share their screen and share some information about our curriculum with you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to spend a few moments with you guys going over Eureka Math for Richmond. There's a lot of changes, a lot of new things going on. So let me get right into it. My name is Ken Wilmers, and I am the Account Solutions Manager for Virginia. Basically, that means I'll be the focal point for your school district between us and Great Minds. Also with me is Nadine Muta Ali, who is our Regional Implementation Manager, and she's going to say a few words for you right now.
Hi, Ken. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadine Muta Ali, and I work as a part of the Implementation Success Team. So my primary role is to be a support person with implementation in a district. So I first start with meeting regularly with the administration to figure out what are the implementation challenges that teachers are facing, and then we meet regularly to address those changes. And that can be Zoom meetings, because now it's virtual, or we were also doing observations of classrooms to figure out what we can change as far as implementation.
And Nadine is part of our team. There's actually 3 of us that will really be focusing on Richmond, myself, Nadine, and Christy Burgess is actually our professional development coordinator that will be working with us. She cannot be on the call today, but the 3 of us will be working strongly to support your district. And Carl Kilbasa is a regional solutions manager, and he'll be around as well. But we're as a team working with your school district. So a lot of new things happening with Eureka Math in Virginia. I know many of you are familiar with the Eureka Math already, so I'm not going to go deep into the actual curriculum. Many of you have seen the math, and we'll talk about what's different here with Virginia. So first of all, there's a new version of Eureka Math coming out specifically aligned to the Virginia SOLs. So that's going to take away any conflict with the curriculum and looking at what lesson here and one lesson there. It's going to be one coherent curriculum for Virginia that supports all the Virginia instructional shifts. The focus on coherence, usability, the rigor mathematic practices. Everyone knows our curriculum is written by teachers and for teachers, making it very educative for teachers. We still have the same strategic use of models that were developed for Eureka Math. The lessons obviously include real-world applications in our problem sets. And of course, equity and access is a critical part of our curriculum. The progression documents that were created by the University of Arizona became the foundation of Eureka Math. It basically highlighted what good math is about and how students learn. What came out of there, and I just want to show this real quick, is a new definition of rigor. When I went to school, rigor meant it was hard. Today, rigor means it's got 3 main components: a conceptual understanding of the math, fluency, understanding the math facts, and application, when and how to use the math. So basically, Eureka Math guides students through deep conceptual learning first, instead of just giving them formulas and procedures. Now, many of you are familiar with some of these models. Okay, these are the 4 models that your students will see throughout Eureka Math: tape diagrams, number bonds, and number lines. But what's new now is we've aligned Eureka Math specifically to your SOLs. So for instance, and I know this is a bit hard to read, but we're going to update our webpage with this as well. So here's grid kindergarten modules. There'll be 6 modules aligned to the SOLs. First grade will have 6 modules. Second grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and it'll continue through middle school as well. So we've taken the math curriculum, okay, the Eureka Math solid math curriculum. We've aligned it to the SOLs. This is kind of giving an overview map of the types of modules and where this progression is going to go through learning. This is a layered curriculum, right? So we're going to keep building skills on top of each other. So we've totally refurbished it, not refurbished it, but we aligned it to your Virginia SOLs. Each module has a variety of topics, and those topics will have lessons associated with it. The lesson components are, and many of you are familiar with this, but if you look at what the concepts here, okay, you can look at the lesson components: fluency, application problems, concept development, and debrief. And then in middle school, we have a problem set, we have Socratic seminars, exploration, and modeling. Nadine, can you go over the module overview a little bit and how that sets them up for learning?
Yes, so our curriculum is written as a story. So the module overview really just gives you an idea of the main characters in the story. It's going to tell you where the students are coming from and where they're going in this current module. It's kind of like a narrative of what is about to happen in the mathematics before even jumping into the lesson.
And then the lesson components. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Nadine, can you go over this?
And so for our lesson components are different. For K-5, we have lesson components that are the same structure throughout the story units. But when we get to that 6-12 component and 6th through 8th grade, we have different lesson types. And those lesson types address rigor based on the concept that's being presented in that lesson for that time. So I know that earlier we were mentioning that precise language. That language is going to follow students throughout the story as well.
And you can see here that these lesson components merge directly with the rigor slide I showed you earlier on. As far as being educative, again, this is part of the built-in, I'll call it, put in quotes, PD, where you can see what an exchange between you and your students look like. Again, this is year one of this curriculum, realistically. As well as scaffolding that will allow you to see how to address the needs of different groups of students, whether ELLs or special ed, or even for advanced students. We also have several different assessments built into our curriculum. As you know, there are daily exit tickets, and there are mid and end of module assessments, and we have a digital practice assessment called Affirm. So this is also new for Virginia, the student materials. So it'll be the Learn, the Practice, and Succeed books. Again, these will be aligned to the Virginia SOLs. The Learn book will have the problem sets, the application problems, and the exit tickets. The Practice books will have the sprints, the fluency templates, and then the Succeed book will have the homework problems and the homework helpers for parents. And of course, the teacher edition as well will be aligned to Virginia SOLs, and that's a new teacher edition also. There's a digital suite available, which is a clickable interactive map of the module that includes the Teach Eureka videos. So, and these are basically 18 one-hour grade level videos. So each grade has 18 videos. And it's basically one of the writers of the curriculum explaining how and the best way to implement that particular lesson. And this is one of, I think, one of our most important slides. Professional development team and support team. We already heard from Nadine. And she's going to be working with your team as far as, you know, best implementation ideas. And I'll be working with you as well. Nadine, you want to go over the virtual PD a little bit, please?
Yes, so due to the shutdown, we are moving our PD virtually, and it's going to mimic the same in-person experience, the same content, but we're doing this in a virtual way. And also it allows some time in between the session. We have a blocked off of hours session where there's going to be a break in between the day where teachers and participants can go and complete the reading and whatever mathematics needs to be completed, so that when we come back, we can answer and address those content and lead the PD for the instructional pieces.
Yeah, because of, you know, COVID-19, we've had to revamp a lot of our resources, and one of them has been our PD world. So there's virtual PD, both for our foundational sessions and as well as our sustaining sessions. Also, there's other on-demand resources on our website. There's webinars that teachers can look at. There's resource packs and math night resources. And the thing that we have on our website now is called Knowledge on the Go. And it's basically daily instructional videos that are free to look at and download. You don't have to log in. You can just access them on our website. And this is our first, you know, foray into some type of virtual learning. And we've got some new ideas about how we may implement in the fall if there are issues that come up, if we're still doing virtual learning. So that's something to kind of stay tuned for. So that's really the overview of Eureka Math in Virginia. We've got some, like I said, the big news is that you'll be getting new resources specifically aligned to the Virginia SOLs.
Thank you, Ken and Nadine. Thank you.
And we're going to talk now, thank you, EL Education and Grapevines and Open Up Resource. And we're going to talk a little bit about now how this work and this partnership is continuing the journey that we already started. It's really important to know that these aren't pivots from the work that we've been doing, but this is building on our original instructional vision of what we want for students and how we can help them reach their utmost potential. And so Cassandra and Ebony are going to show and just show about how these are connected to the work that our teachers are already doing in our classrooms.
Our school saw so much growth and gains that we decided to extend our pilot into the 2019-2020 school year. In fact, some of our schools even saw double-digit gains. So we extended our pilot into 23 out of our 26 elementary schools, where Eureka was really the foundation of our extended pilot. And we did a lot of alignment work this year to our new 2016 Virginia SOLs. So what we're proposing is adopting Eureka for next academic school year in partnership with Great Minds. And as you've heard from our partners, they are developing currently a Virginia-specific version of the Eureka Math curriculum. So that kind of walks you through our journey to where we are today. And I'll throw it on over to Ebony at this point.
Hi, everyone. And I just want you to know behind the scenes, I'm talking from my cell phone right now, as well as looking at my laptop computer. And so there were just a lot of windows open. So I apologize. But I did want to go ahead and talk a little bit about our lit block and what that might look like next year should we adopt this curriculum, and what it looked like last year, so that you would understand that some of the work that we already started last year really helped to lay a foundation for whatever curriculum that may have been adopted, or for us to continue to move forward with the direction that we were going last year. And so I'm so excited about this, because if you remember what the curriculum committee espoused in terms of their priorities for a curriculum adoption, think about what we did last year. We talked about, in terms of the K2 block, we talked about having the read aloud and having the comprehension lesson, as well as we included a half an hour for whole group phonics instruction. Well, next year, should we adopt this curriculum, we would look at the whole group instruction for the module lessons. We would have a focus on discussions, fluency, vocabulary, read aloud, and close reading, as well as writing. And then when we go into the foundational skills block, which would be the second hour of the K2 block, this would be a dedication to teaching our students how to read with a focused, structured phonics approach. And what that means is that not only will there be whole group instruction for the phonics skills, that means the grade level expectations, but then because the focus now becomes teaching students how to read and making sure that by the end of second grade, they are able to decode, they have those phonemic awareness skills, there will now be differentiated instruction focused on the science of reading, focused using focused using controlled decodable readers, helping our students apply the skills that they're learning and also review skills that they've learned in the past. And then for 3-5, there would be a focus again with our whole group, small group, and independent practice. But what that small group instruction would look like would be, again, opportunities for students to access and practice what they're learning about and what they're reading, as well as focused attention on our students with disabilities, as well as our language learners. And then in the middle schools, we would have the traditional 45-minute block whole group. And so also knowing that we've talked a lot about close reading in the last year, we also incorporated accountable independent reading, and we made sure that there was a clear structure and time for students to learn how to read, also spend time applying what they're learning to their reading, as well as taking it to that next level with the close reading. Okay. So thank you.
We're going to talk now about implementation. There's been some questions about the implementation, so I'm hoping these will address that, and then we'll allow some time for some overall Q&A, but there's a ton of questions in there, and we'll talk about how we're going to continue to address those questions throughout this time. So first, we are in phase 1. Phase 1 is what we're part of right now, which is our curriculum previews. Today is the kickoff of that, and we're going to share how we have additional engagement after today. We're engaging with principals. We met with them last week just around the curriculum adoption process in general. They had a session this morning, again, so they are versed in this, and they have that deep understanding, and they were asking the same great questions you were asking. We have a readiness survey that's going to help us really determine, engage, where are our needs. So as a district, are we seeing some trends that we all need for change, for this change, or what are some specific skills we all need, and then what are some school-based needs? And so this will help to continue to improve our implementation plan. And then I think we move into phase 2. And this is what I'm really excited about, because this is when we can really dig into the curriculum and we'll all be lead learners together. The virtual professional learning, which you're going to see in a minute at the next slide, is going to show that there is continuation of learning by different roles, and that the virtual professional learning is going to allow for multiple entry points, meaning if a adopted and approved on June 1st, that we can start offering professional learning, that some people are going to have the opportunity to dive right in. It's June and they're like, I want to learn. I don't want to wait till the week before school starts in August. I want to have that learning now. They're going to have the opportunity to do that. But there are circumstances, especially in these unsettling times right now, that you may not have that opportunity. I would love to learn in June, but I can't because of X, Y, or Z, that there's going to be multiple entry points that maybe I'll have the opportunity to get that same learning in July or in August. This allows our teachers, our leaders, our coaches to have some voice and choice in when their learning is, even though there is learning that all of us are going to need before we implement the curriculum. And again, we'll have continued coaching, training, principal meetings, ordering materials ASAP, and also strategic planning meetings with our partner. Again, this is a partnership, and we believe strongly in that partnership. Cassandra alluded earlier, in year 2 of our Richmond Math, one of the things that we made things a little bumpy and honest is because we didn't have the opportunity to partner with Eureka. We were hoping that this partnership will really provide a great implementation plan. Ebony and Cassandra are going to talk a little bit about what in phase 2 that virtual learning looks like.
Thank you, Dr. Neighbors. So this is just a summer learning for Eureka, the virtual launch of the PD. And as Autumn alluded to, we have different groups of folks that will be participating in PD. So we have a track for our principals, we have a track for our coaches and teacher leaders, as well as our teachers. And as Autumn spoke to, there are different entry points. So this will not be, these PD sessions will not be offered just one time. They will be offered multiple times to ensure that everyone has access to these PDs throughout the summer.
And thank you. And for ELA, there are also tracks for our principals, coaches, and teachers that will allow them to access the curriculum and learn more about it throughout the summer. But also, if they do not have an opportunity to finish these sessions or to even begin them, there will be multiple entry points, as Dr. Neighbors and Ms. Bell have spoken to.
And then we move into phase 3. And this is really important because, you know, sometimes when we implement something or start anything new, a program or resource, and we do all this training, and then it's like, good luck, you know, thumbs up, let us know if you need anything. But it's really, we feel like we're just dumped into the deep end of the pool. Well, that is not the intention of our plan. And again, we hope that using the readiness survey and constant communication and feedback loops to help provide the right level of support that's needed at the school level, through teacher leaders and through our principals and at the district level. And that will be continuing coaching training, working with principals at cluster meetings, master classes, learning walks, and then again, continue to working with our partners. Dr. Ebb?
Yes, and I just want to share one quick thing before we get ready to move to questions. I see, you know, curriculum implementation, and with this curriculum, if approved, this is about, you know, setting a really strong foundation of what grade level work and grade level expectations really entails for our kids, that prepares them for what they need K-8 to enter high school ready to take on more challenging and advanced coursework. Like any curricula, we should be iterating and evolving. And I do not see, none of us see this as a 1 year kind of like, okay, let's do this and see what happens. Like this is a multi-year commitment for us to, you know, really implement, for us to learn. And I want to normalize for our teachers, we need to create a culture where it's okay to grapple and struggle.
So as we continue into Q&A, I wanted to address a couple things that we're doing for Q&A. Oh, this is, I'm sorry, the principal and teacher readiness survey. They are linked here, and we will share this again slide deck on our curriculum page. But also, this readiness assessment is really to gauge how we can support. How do we know what teachers need, what principals need, in order to figure out where are our levers and where are our strengths, and where do we need to continue to grow and provide that support, because we're all in here together. And that's what we really want this implementation to feel like. We're going to answer some overall Q&A. I know it's really hard to do this with over 200 people, and that's really exciting. It's a good problem to have that so many people are engaged here. One of the things we're doing before we get to a couple questions, and I think Dr. Up said she was going to try to summarize some of the things that she's monitoring in the chat and just seeing and answering in the chat, is we are going to put a Google form on our website that people can add questions. You might need to process this and think about this. So you can add questions, and from those, the questions from today, from the questions in that form, we're going to create an FAQ too that will go out and allow people to kind of dig in there. There's a ton of resources on that website. If you can go to the next slide. That has a number, there's videos to learn more so you can see it. Sometimes it's great to see it in action, to see students in it. There's our there's the websites with the materials, the modules, the lessons. And so I think that's a great place to continue to dig in. And we're going to offer 3 more sessions of curriculum preview, starting with, if we can go to the next slide, and then we'll go back to Q&A. I'm going to make sure everyone hears this. Starting with Friday at 9 a.m. and then next Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. And someone's asked, what if, you're working or you may not be able to meet at that time? We are, again, recording these, and as many things that we are sharing, we're putting on our website so people can access those at different times. Which goes to now into some of our questions. One question I will start with was, with the virtual PD, is that all going to be synchronous? And that is not the case. That some of that PD is asynchronous. So people will be able to access that. I think of, the term PD in your PJs. Like, you can be able to access that professional learning at different times, not just months, but different times during the day too.
Great, thank you, Autumn. And so again, we have more sessions of these coming up to go deeper into the curriculum itself. And another session that I'll likely be doing, something that I'm particularly passionate about, is around how does instructional planning and preparation look using this type of curricula. I know that sometimes things get lost in translation around expectations around lesson planning, and this is to, I want to make sure that our vision for what this means for instructional planning is directly heard from me to teachers. So we'll be talking more about that in the coming weeks as well, as part of just getting familiar, so that when June 1st comes and the board is considering their decision, they will hear, hopefully, from you all your opinions, whether they are in support or against. I just encourage you all to make your voices known either way. So just to a couple of, I think, themes I saw, I'm trying to hit a couple quick ones. First, several folks asked about reading mastery for those schools that use reading mastery. If your school is feeling like you're jamming on reading mastery and that's working for your phonics portion, we would want to, I think that's an option that schools have, is to keep that and think about implementing the K-12 foundational skills block over time later. So that's I think a individual school conversation, depending on how that's been working at your school. So the short answer is you would not do both. You would do one or the other in terms of the skills block. For K2 is what I'm talking about. Now, related, some folks have asked about, well, what about third 5 if I have students who need phonics or aren't reading on grade level? That is, we know that's a reality. That's partly why I feel like we need a really strong, reading curricula. And first and foremost, the power of this curricula is to ensure that our core instruction, our tier 1 instruction, is at the level of expectation and grade level standard that not only the Virginia SOLs demand, but that our students deserve in order to be truly college and career ready. And so we have to embrace the idea that we will never remediate our way to mastery or grade level mastery. Now, that's easier to say than do. And so what that means in my mind is we teach to our grade level and we provide scaffolds and supports. Students who need phonics, who are below level and need phonics and fluency support should get that during intervention blocks. And that's one of the reasons we also invested this year in trying to launch our RTI model. And I think next year we're going to be stronger. So students get grade level instruction and they get scaffolds, through you. That's part of the planning work, but also tier 2 or even tier 3 instruction, depending on how far behind they are. Another theme I heard a lot was around sort of really good questions about pacing. Starting with, is there going to be time to get to, I hear there's a lot of novels and texts in here. Are we going to be able to read it all? First, I want to give a shout out. I think it's Kami Porter. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. where you said somebody told you to not read the full text and to give chapter summaries, and you refused to do so. Hear, hear. We're not doing the intellectual work for kiddos. The beauty of some of this curricula is that it's forcing students, helping us help students do higher level thinking. So yes, we do. This is designed so that students, in some cases, are doing full novels, but this is not a novel study, I think, the way we might traditionally think about it. It certainly, there's paired texts and there's paired passages. Sometimes we're reading excerpts from novels and sometimes we're using the whole novel. It just depends on the unit. But I do think we've got to really prioritize time for students to do that text, and the pacing does allow for that. Somebody flagged a question about pacing and time to do that while having a lot of assessments. One of the things our team is committed to is looking at our assessment calendar and making sure that we are really streamlining that. So you're not spending so much time collecting data that you don't have time to respond to the data. So later in June, we will also be posting a draft assessment calendar that we will be asking teachers, and I don't know if this has ever been done, but certainly we're gonna post an assessment calendar on our website for teachers to give us feedback and comments around our assessment calendar. So look for that in late June coming. And I love that you asked that question in relation to pacing. And then another one was around SOLs. And historically, I guess I learned that one of the patterns, and maybe this is typical, there's a typical in Richmond, is that our pacing guide would stop for new instruction in around March. And then we would use the next 2 months to prepare for the SOL. I don't see pacing that way. And so, we have 180 days of instruction for third grade. We're going to use 180 days for third grade. Now, do we need to make sure that students have covered the major work prior to the state assessment? Absolutely. But we're not going to stop instruction and then do review. We're going to build mastery and review throughout the school year because students are going to be doing that work constantly. So more to come on that. The other thing I just want to share, some folks asked about implementation and some nervousness about pacing and what if I don't finish the lesson in each day? What does that mean for me? Our team is being thoughtful about how to build in flex days, so that because in order for you all to hold students to and to support them in meeting a grade level standard, we have to give you the time to do that. And so you have to have flexibility in your pacing guide to, if a lesson is going to take 2 days for your students to really get, you need to have time to flex. And so our team will be doing that as they flesh out the pacing. So I'll pause there, but there's so many more great questions, but those are some of the big ones that I feel passionately about. I guess I'll say one more thing. And somebody alluded to earlier, you have my commitment that this idea of implement with fidelity as it has meant to people, that is not what we mean. We do not mean day 5, page 5, day 5. Autumn has coined this term of implement with integrity, and I'd add intentionality. We want you to implement with thoughtfulness and intentionality towards the level of thinking and the exciting work that this puts in front of our kids. That is going to be so much more powerful than trying to follow a playbook here day by day. That's not the idea here. So with that, I'll stop because there's so many questions to get to, and I'll turn it back over to Autumn. We will have more of these next week, and we will work to get your questions answered.
We have about 2 minutes left, and I wanted to just, I'm trying to also scroll through the chat here, and there was some questions around history and science, especially at the elementary level. And of course, this history and science timeframes are still protected, though that content is still essential to be taught. But what's really exciting is that the EL education curriculum will continue to support that, and vice versa. And so these things are going to really connect. And that was one of the things that was part of the curriculum review, is that cross-curricular or interdisciplinary, whatever term we want to use, learning, but we know that content learning is essential. And so I think that was something that was asked earlier. And we, again, want to direct everyone to check out the resources that are on our website. We are updating things every day. So it has the curriculum, the standards alignment, it has videos and resources, it'll have a Q&A and the FAQ. And so please continue to use that as a place, a source of all of the information that we are putting together for this phase 1.